I want to give this roadmap to the dealerships of like, don't be afraid of the technology, embrace the technology, but understand that it's a process more than it is a piece of technology.
Yeah.
Welcome to another episode of The Drive. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
For everyone out there that's watching or listening right now and maybe don't know who you are, let's start off with that 2-minute origin story. That's John, just so we have some context.
Yeah, John Gottschalk. I've been in the car business 23 years. I backdoored my way into the industry. I married into a Ford family in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the McCrackens. And one day they took me to lunch and they said, hey, you're on the road a lot and I think you'd be a good finance manager. I'd like to invite you into the business. I didn't even know what a finance manager did. So that was my entry into the automotive retail world, and spent 8 years at our family dealership and went to the dealer academy, which is great training. If anybody's out there, I highly recommend the NADA Dealer Academy for training. So held pretty much every position at a dealership. And obviously, when you're the outlaw in the family, you're thrust with filling a lot of the holes. You're the finger in the dike and the trusted person. So, I did a lot of that. So I've sat in a lot of the seats that a lot of you guys that are listening out there are sitting in today. And the auto business is a great business because a lot of things in 23 years really haven't changed.
That's true.
And moved on to work some time with the AutoNation on AutoNation Direct, their online car buying service. Yep. Worked with a company in Austin, Texas called Trilogy. Okay. Heavy into technology, obviously. So it was really my first foray into the online space, and great eye-opener for me to see what the future was going to be. And that was over 11, 12 years ago.
Well, and coming into that with your operation experience, I mean, you must have been looking at that tech from an operational, kind of objective, right?
Yeah. And so, did that for a year and a half, and then went to work for a company called Ford Direct.
And, I think I've heard of those guys.
Yeah. And Ford Direct, I spent 8 years there. Was the 33rd employee at Ford Direct, and really a dealer-led company as we started out, looking to found technology pieces to put into dealerships to help them move their business forward, right? And so, that was a nice eye-opener too, to understand the complexities that dealers face every day and how they bring in these technologies to use and be more efficient and effective, and how the consumers have moved online. And even back in my days at McCracken in 97, 98, when we first started putting in websites. Yes. And I was taking faxes from Stone Age, from my father-in-law, handing them to me.
That was 98, 99, right?
98, 99.
Right, so I think my first dealership, they got their first website in 2001.
Yeah.
Might have been late right 2000, but yeah, it was probably right around there, yeah.
And so, for me, I started, taking and calling leads, and Chip Perry reached out to me from Auto Trader at the time and wanted me to come talk to dealers in Pittsburgh about how I was handling the internet leads. And I'm like,
now, did you call internet leads back then? Because I always talked to OGs. So. We did call them that. I remember calling them. I actually found a form that, like a super old Excel sheet that I had filled out probably in 2002. And it actually had internet inquiries.
Okay.
That, I think, was actually the terminology that we were using at the time. Yeah. And then I saw a little down, it said form fills. Yeah. So I think internet inquiries, internet forms is what we were calling them. I don't know at what point in time during an industry we changed the language to start calling these things leads. And I hate the word.
Yeah, it's terrible. Really it's a terrible metric. Yeah. It's to me is the worst metric we've ever established in the car business. And it was funny, my father would walk those down the hallway. My desk was at the end of the hallway. If you remember the old Ford stores, usually the owner sat up the hallway and he'd walk down and hand me the leads, these faxes they came across, and I would just call the customers. So Chip asked me to come talk to dealers. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I just call people and talk to them, and so when you start thinking about that and how the industry's evolved, when you think about those online leads and the forms, and really we did ourselves the biggest disservice because we put the technology out in front of process.
That's true. Like, we just assumed like the website was going to sell the car for us, or we just assumed that the autoresponder was going to engage well enough so that the customer would just show up and just want to sign on the dotted line.
And you just said something that was really interesting. The customer is going to show up and just sign on the dotted line.
That's what somehow, I don't know how we got that expectation, but dealerships somehow created, or maybe it's our fault because maybe we were selling the tech maybe kind of in that way at that time. And I remember 2005 sitting down with the website provider, and pretty much that was not far from the pitch was, you know what, just put this out there, people will just show up. Like, literally, they'll show up and they'll be ready to buy.
Right, and you know, one of the things that I used to, because I was the son-in-law, I would take the overflow sales. So on like a Saturday or something, you know, I would go out and greet Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and I was busy, they're busy, right? Yeah. And everybody was hearing at the time that we were going to sell cars online, right? Everybody's going to, the future of the car business is sell cars online. That was in 99, 2000. I
remember that.
And that's 20 years ago.
I know.
What are we supposed to be doing today? Selling cars online. Do we do that yet? No, even Carvana doesn't totally do that. They still do the paperwork at the dealer, at the customer's house, whatever.
That's right.
So I would greet Mr. and Mrs. Smith, say, hey, this is great. Welcome to the dealership, and one of the things that's great about today is I'm Mr. McCracken's son-in-law. And I know you're really busy, right, Jason? And I'm sure you've been doing a lot of research on the internet, because everybody's supposed to be doing that, right?
Yes.
And even if Jason didn't do anything on the internet, he'd be like, yeah, I've been doing that.
Because
you didn't want to be the guy saying, no, I didn't do that.
No, I wasn't doing it.
And I'd say, hey, I'm really busy. I know you could see we're real busy today. Obviously, I don't usually take, customers. I'm just fortunate enough to take you today. And I'm sure you know exactly what you're looking for. I'll make the numbers work. What color car do you like? Let's just take it for a ride and we'll make sure it works out for you. I sold a ton of cars that way.
Yeah.
And it really, to me, I think it's an instrument that dealers could use today. Because most customers are online now. They do actually go online and do their research.
Yes, and I think that's where maybe the tech is actually getting us closer to understanding just where the customer's mindset is. Mm-hmm. Are they still doing research, which is okay. If they come into the dealership and they're still in the research part of their buying cycle, okay, that's fine. Let's make sure we have a process though for them. Right. That process is going to be a lot different looking than someone who's maybe shopping. Right. They already know the 2 or 3 cars that they're interested in, and now they're at this place where they just want to physically touch or feel or smell or sit down or listen or whatever floats their boat. Right. And then there are people that's like, okay, they're on their 3rd RAV4. And their lease is up and they just want to get another RAV4, right? Yeah, but it's like the technology I feel like is getting closer to helping us identify if they're just researching, if they're shopping, or if they're straight up just ready to buy.
Yeah, unfortunately I was never able to do that when I was at the Ford store because our leases were never good enough. The next time the guy came in, that the payment would be
like $200 more.
It's like $200 more because Ford had a great incentive going on at that time, and then that customer comes back and it's like, hey, I'd kind of like to get the same car I had before, and we're like, oh, great, not a problem, here you go, and it's $220 more a month. They're like, what the heck is this?
Big Three always kind of had that problem.
Hey, what do you think, you're at a Toyota dealership? Come on, this is a Ford store.
You got the same lease payment for 8 years straight.
Yeah, really, you can't do that. But from the technology standpoint, I think customers are doing a lot of that research.
Yeah.
And we have to adapt our processes and how we address the customer when they come in. I think, obviously I don't sell cars every day anymore. Every once in a while I'll go in and act like I'm selling a car with somebody. But
it's fun to do that though, isn't it?
It is, and I actually would like to again start getting myself involved in a little bit more of that so I can better understand what the customers really are coming in, because NADA says that 50 to 60% of the customers are just walking in your store with all the information. They want to come buy a car. Yeah. They haven't called you, they haven't submitted a lead. And so we have to address the customer like they're ready. And I think my style of what I did back in 2000 or 99 of just, hey, I know your time's, they're there to buy a car. Nobody's coming to the dealership anymore not to buy a car. And I think we need to address the customer with respect of, hey, I know your time is very valuable, and we want to make sure that you have the best experience at XYZ dealership, and that's why we have this, commitment to customer satisfaction. And what is it exactly, either if your technology's allowed you to do something online. Now I know a lot of the manufacturers are moving, like if you're online, you can save it, and the in-store, or we can pull it up, Mr. Customer, whatever. But I think what stage are you at, or what's the opportunity that we can work on today to maximize your time?
Sure.
And so I think if you could address customers that way, and more about, how to help them buy the car than it is sell them anything.
And I think that's where technology can kind of come in. Technology can help them figure out how they're going to buy the car. How do they want to own the car? What car actually does make sense for them and their needs.
Yeah.
But I think as dealerships, we're still, it's almost, I feel like kind of split down the middle, right? Yeah. I find like it's a 50-50. I have dealerships that are embracing technology, but then even the 50% that are really embracing the technology, they're still trying to figure out how the technology fits within their process. And they don't realize that that's like putting a square into a round hole. That's not going to work, right?
Exactly.
Like these technology come with a process. It's not how you're going to take the technology and force it into your process. It is a new set of processes. Yeah. And that's where I see a lot of them kind of fall off. And I think what we're really kind of talking about is like things like digital retailing, things about, like video lead response. What's some of your favorite tech right now, actually?
Well, I mean, obviously at LotLinks, one of the things that I find, and when I joined LotLinks over 2.5 years ago, was the ability to leverage the data that we already have from our Google Analytics, our inventory feeds, and show the dealer, what is actually happening with their media spends.
Yes.
And with the, when the internet first came to all of us dealers, it was like, now we're going to be able to track everything. We'll know exactly what's going on. And I still have dealers today say, John, I got all this, I'm spending, I think, more than I've ever spent, and I don't feel like I'm selling any more cars.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be more efficient, more effective. And I think what we've done at LotLinks is we've allowed the dealer now to have some of that insight that's going to help them analyze that spend a little bit more efficiently, to understand the traffic to my website, which is really your online store.
Well, today, and that's what technology is supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
You said the keyword, it's efficiency. It should be making everything efficient. Like if it's a technology that's designed to be forward-facing to the consumer, it should be making that car buying process for them more efficient.
Right.
If it's a piece of technology for the dealerships, because we know the tremendous amount of money collectively as an industry we spend on marketing, all right, we should be more efficient with it.
I think it's incorporating it into your process. I think it's, I truly believe that there's a way, because, transparency is an overused word in my book, and it doesn't merely mean anything, because everybody knows you've got to make money to stay in business and take care of the customer. And I think there's ways to incorporate that into your processes, when it might be, when it's talk about, the used car, when you're coming in, you're taking a look at that, and you're doing an appraisal on the customer's vehicle. The things that we did back in the day with our store was, you were supposed to take the customer out and walk around the car.
Yeah.
And help understand their value that they thought their car was worth, and really show the blemishes, and obviously, so when you present them with the number, they understand why.
Yeah.
And I think we forget the why part for our customers.
Yeah.
And it's about, how do you take that technology and put the why with them, and then they start engaging together with that process.
Engaging together. So that's the thing. Like for some reason, I feel like our industry sometimes just views technology, and they view them as like silver bullets. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like diet pills. Do you know what I mean? Like quick diet pills. You want to lose 20 pounds? Here, take a pill. It's like, you want to sell more cars? Here's a pill. Here's a pill.
Yeah. And I think the thing you just said right there, sell more cars. And in some dealerships, I don't think they can sell more cars.
No, and I don't think that necessarily should be the goal.
It's not about that. It's about how can I be more efficient in my processes and what I'm doing at the store, to become more, when it comes to my spend in marketing, to be more efficient, to spend the right money, to obtain at least what I'm getting today, and save that money, because that dollar saved, if you think about the margin, how exponentially that makes that dollar that much larger, right? Because your return on your investment. So if you're out there spending $1 to make 30 cents, it's not worth it, right? If you're spending that dollar to make $5, I want to do more of that, right? And the people you have at your store, your guy that's the 12 car guy, is he ever going to be the 15 or 20 car guy? Does he have the capabilities? In most businesses, does he want to? Because he doesn't want to do that much more work.
That's right.
And your manager.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's actually legitimately nothing wrong with that. I actually sat down with a salesperson the other day, and he was significantly stressed out. And I'm like, "Why are you stressed out?" He goes, "Like, Jay, Like, they want me to sell 20 cars a month, and I'm not going to do it. It's like,
I totally agree with that.
I said, what would he use? And he was a 12 car guy, and he's like, look, I'm good. Yeah. Like, I'm happy. I can go home when I need to go home. I'm not having to come in late and stay late like some of the other guys are. Like, I got 2 young kids. Like, I'm good where I'm at. But that's not necessarily in line with what the dealership's looking for. It's just like, but I think that's because we need to understand more of our employees wise.
And you know what? That's funny you say that, because when I joined the family business, I came from a corporate side where my goal was to be the CEO, right? The whole ladder to the top. Yeah. And not everybody wants to be on that ladder. And so I would come in there. We had a lot of tenants that had been with us for 10, 15 years. Yeah. And I was like, why is that guy a lot attendant? And they liked what they did. That's what they did. They had a family. They wanted to be home. They didn't want to have to, do the sales. There's a seat for everybody. My father-in-law used to say there's a butt for every seat, and then we've got to find them. Yeah. And in your corporate worlds and in business, it's about, do we have the right people in the right seats? And those goals and objectives those people have, we have to get them so they fit into what we're trying to accomplish as dealers. Sure. And the technology part can help us find, I think, when you start looking at the iPads and the way that they can work those iPads and use with the customers efficiently in the sales process, helps find the right people, because you don't have to be totally that car guy and you don't have to be that sales guy so much anymore. The transparency of the pricing and things that we have today.
Well, let's talk a little bit about transparency, because I think it's another one of those buzzwords that I like to throw around, right? Yeah. And really what it is just it's communication. Right. That's really what it is. Yes. We're bettering our communication efforts through technology, which generates a level of transparency. Mm-hmm. I think there's just a lot of people confused about like what transparency means. It's like some people seem to think that transparency is like, do I have to show them exactly how much money I'm making on this thing? Like, no, that's not just what we're talking about, right? It's just we're talking about being more efficient with our communication efforts.
And it's about value.
Well, and it's the perception of that perceived value.
That's really is what transparency is if I have been able to provide the customer their perceived value of the product that they're buying in their day-to-day lives, and is that value worth the price? And so, there's a difference between price and value. Yep. And the value is how this is going to help get me from point A to point B, or get to the soccer game with my kids, whatever that is. And so it's that the transparency is really, to you, that discussion and just be able to talk to people in a manner that shows respect, that you're finding their needs. You're giving them the benefits of what the vehicle can do for them. I sold Saturns for about 8 months with the Numrich Automotive Group, with Bill Numrich, his Saturn store, and I thought that was a great experience for me before I started working at the Ford store, because it was the road to the sale. It was we talked to the customer about when they came in, what the expectations were going to be. We told them what we were going to do, the steps till they walked out or drove that car off the curb. Was here's the first thing and we could start at any point of that process based off of the deal that customers already coming into the store where they wanted to start.
Sure.
And I think that's kind of how we have to be. We have to be really meeting the customers at the point they want to be at that point and understanding, but you have to ask some questions.
Well, we have to communicate, and
technology is the worst enemy to communication sometimes.
Well, it's the way that we use it.
It
See,
is.
people have to understand that technology is not an easy button. Okay, there is it's not an easy button, right? Like, it is giving us a tool. A tool is only as good as how well we use it, all right? But that tool gives us the ability to communicate with the customer in a faster way, and that's our CRM systems, if that's our lead management tools, if that's our video response tools, which kind of like the video. I enjoy
video too. I'm a visual guy. And we're in Vegas. I mean, look at the visual stimulation you have. I mean, it's amazing. This place, I've been coming for 23 years. I can't imagine how many times I've been to Vegas, over 120 times. And it always amazes me, the visual stimulation, what goes on here, and how they, when you think about customer experience, this is what it's all about. Yes. This is, every one of these hotels we go into is about the customer and how we are stimulated and how they want you to spend money here. And it's about centered around the customer. And I think that's where technology needs to always be thinking when we look at putting those into our processes at the store. It needs to center around the customer and not of course it solves problems we have as a dealer and our people there, but it's about how does it engage with our customers and help us be better in the experience that they're going to have when they come into XYZ dealership.
Oh, for sure. I mean, if you right now, I think the approach for dealers when it comes to looking at these new tools and new CRMs and new lead management tools, new chat systems and new website tools and new website widgets or trade-in widgets and all these things. Like there's a widget for everything right now, by the way. Isn't there?
I think there is. I definitely.
I saw a shuttle widget the other day.
A shuttle widget.
Yeah, so it's like an app. You just get to order. The customer of the dealership just gets to order their own shuttle.
Oh, okay. To come pick them up while their car's getting fixed or whatever it might be. Yeah,
exactly.
So
that to me calling in.
To me, it's a great. But you've got to figure out how it works. It works, right?
I think what it is we've looked at this tech and we look at how is it going to serve my needs as a dealership. But it's like that's not the right way to look at it. Mm-hmm. It's like we have to be looking at this technology and embracing it and buying into it because how it serves our customers' needs. Yeah. And so often do I see a tool like your guys's that gets bought into the dealership, but then it doesn't ever really get.
It never gets leveraged the way it should. Ever. I don't. I can't even say there's.
It's not with the goal and objective behind the customer. It's, I mean, we're talking about marketing, for example, right? Like that's your first form of communication. You're communicating to them a message, all right? And it better be. How are you going to know if it's not the right message if you're not tracking the damn thing?
Right. Yeah, I had to talk with an automotive group yesterday, and it was about what are the things that you would do to change how they go to market. And I'm like, first of all, I have to understand your process at your store. What are the measurements that you look at that help you sell cars every day? And if you're not doing those things, it's not going to matter what we do on an advertising side for the most part, because we were an APB store at our Ford store. It was about the desk and taking the ups and measuring those. We needed to sell 100 cars. How many customers do we have to talk to? Yeah. I mean, what are the basic things, the blocking and tackling?
So crazy? It's like 2020, we're still talking about
It's about blocking and tackling. What are the foundations? And so I think we get away from that as car folks, and that really need to concentrate on that more, and especially in this day and age. I think, from a technology standpoint, I personally feel like we're kind of at that top point right now. We've tapped out, and now it's about
let's actually use the damn thing.
Yeah, let's figure out how does the process part of it, right? Yes. How does it get implemented? So we've put the technologies all out in front of our process, and we're kind of like the horse before the carriage, or whatever the saying is. I agree. And now we've got to kind of rope it back in and say, okay, let's stop all this noise. Let's figure out our regular blocking and tackling, and then what are the things that are actually leading people into our store so we can sell cars?
Yes.
And service cars, right? And I think then if we attack our marketing in that manner, and you look at it as a waterfall, working your way back up the waterfall as you spend money, always with an eye on the prize, and that's your customer.
I think it all comes down to the way that we're setting goals and objectives, or lack of goals and objectives. That actually seems to be the more consistent thing with a lot of people. It's like you go into a dealership and the goal and objective, what's your goal and objective? Sell more cars, service more, sell some more parts. Okay. Yeah. Can we get a little more specific here? Like, like what's
smart, right? Isn't it smart, right?
Yeah. Like, can we go a little deeper there? Like, why are you, I think what it is that we all know what we do, right? We sell cars, we service cars, we sell parts. Okay. Right. We all are pretty good about training and developing out how we do it.
Right.
But I don't think we've necessarily spent enough time really talking about why we do it the way that we do it.
Yeah.
And because we don't know that why, it's really hard for us to give our goals and objectives more of a direction than just simply saying, I want to hit this number.
Right. And to the next extent, it's inspecting what you expect.
Yeah.
And really being accountable to that. And I think I know for a fact that we weren't really good at that, inspecting what we expected. We would talk about it, and it was a lot of talk, but it wasn't really implemented real well, and the expectations of the managers and what they're expected to do, and that's being granular in your expectations of the goals and objectives you had, and measuring those, and then holding them accountable to those measurable goals and objectives, so that everybody had clarity, right? Yeah. I mean, a team functions the best when it has clarity of the objective and the goal that they're trying to accomplish. When you think about the Kansas City Chiefs and trying to get to the Super Bowl, what are the things they practiced? They had things that they did, the blocking and tackling,
they had to figure out.
And they had to do it, and they got to that point where they got the prize at the end, the Lombardi Trophy. And I think that's where we all have to kind of really become, true to ourselves about that.
It's an honesty thing. I think we do have to kind of look at ourselves in the mirror first before we go to that next step, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I just feel like when the dealers we see today at NADA, they're coming out here first and foremost. They go to the market, their own manufacturer meetings.
Yep.
And then they've got specific things that they're coming for. It's not like the old times you come to NADA and everybody's walking the floors to buy, whatever they saw, right? And now they're coming with specific things that they're looking for. And I think that they are getting back to the roots of their business and understand, because this is going to be a tough year. This is going to be a really tough year.
No one's going to be spending any more money than they did the previous year. I'll tell you that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like ad budgets are not going to go up.
That's right.
All right. Operational expenses are not going to go up. Everybody's looking at that of how do I keep it at par, or at least how I actually lower.
Yeah, and you just got to be more. You got to look for the tools that are going to make you efficient.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like I think over even last year I saw it start. This year I think we're going to see it, and I think over the next couple of years it's exactly what it is. The name of the game is going to be efficiency. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Everything has to be efficient. The way that we market, all right, the way we communicate to our customers, all right, our operations, our processes. I'm thinking when I first started in this business, I remember we had this old sales manager that refused to use the CRM system. Refused.
Yeah.
But I also couldn't blame him, because when I sat down with him, he opened up a notebook and he manually tracked every single opportunity he ever had.
Right.
Right. He knew how many test drives he took. He knew how many customers he talked to on the phone. He knew all of this stuff. So I'm like, well, technically, you're doing exactly what the CRM is doing. But
it was outside of everything you needed from a dealer across the board, right?
Exactly.
And so, you really have to, those folks, you need to get them engaged into how it's going to make them even take that what they're doing in the paper and make them more efficient to, make their lives easier. I mean, maybe they don't have to sell more cars, but just make their life easier.
Well, I also find, because there's this piece to physically writing something down. You know what I mean? I do too. I actually do too. I actually have a notebook full of leads that I'm following up on, or opportunities.
Yeah, we have Salesforce. We use Salesforce, but you know what? I still write stuff down in my book, and I know exactly what page to go back to.
I think so. I'll use both. I will use both. But I have found, for let's say some of the younger people have gotten into the industry maybe in the last 5 or 7 years, that the CRM systems are almost kind of making them lazy.
Yeah.
Have you seen this, where it's now kind of going the other direction, where it's just just push a button, just push a button, just push a button.
Yeah, but they're not really engaged.
Yeah, they're not engaged.
They're not engaged.
Okay, so maybe it's not the word lazy. Maybe I'm using the wrong word. Maybe that's what it is. They're just not engaged. But when I'm writing stuff down in my notebook, right, and I'm cross-referencing my notebook with my CRM, it's I'm engaged. I'm leaning in.
Right.
And it seems like
you're not only writing it down, but it's also you see yourself writing it. It's a lot of that stimulus that goes into your mind that keeps it going. If you're just putting and pushing buttons on the CRM, it's not the same thing as writing it down, the actual physically doing something.
Yeah.
And I think that, it's really just about being engaged. And I think that's where technology hurts some of us. They think about some of the kids and what they do. They're not engaged one-on-one with people.
No.
And that's becoming a lost art, I think.
Well, this is a people business, and somehow we've placed, I don't know.
Still is. And people pay more for the person that they want to be around, and that they enjoy coming. You used to have those customers that would come to the store, and you got a relationship with them, right? You knew the guys, and it was great. I remember when we had our store, we always knew who we could call to do some work around the house. We had the contractor guy that we could call him up, and he would send a crew out. That was what was great about being a car dealer, was all those types of relationships you had. And when you leave that business, you lose it. And all I have now is Home Advisor.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna love this hack. I love this. I saw this salesperson do this. I don't know if you can do this in the U.S., but or with U.S. cell phone providers. But in Canada, you can actually choose what your caller ID or what it says on it. So I can call up my cell phone provider, and I can tell them how I want it. So it won't just show up my first name. I can say whatever I want.
Okay.
So I had this young gentleman that's in the car business. It hadn't started that long ago, and he went and changed his cell phone number so that up on the caller ID it says "Your Car Guy." So as people saved his phone number into their phone, and they can just goes down, "Hey Siri, call my car guy."
Nice.
And it's just it's just automatically just pulling it up.
So and that's his own self-branding. You know, that's another area we could talk. We could probably keep driving here, and then talk about that self-branding part.
Yeah.
You know, we all know that those guys, it's a part of the business.
Yeah.
You know, when you lose that sales guy, a 20-car guy, and he goes someplace else, he takes a certain percentage of those cars, because actually customers are not that loyal anymore.
No.
They're more loyal to that guy, the car guy,
to the person,
and then they are to that brand.
Yeah.
And so that was super important. I mean, even when we closed our store in 2007, I still had customers calling me and asking where they should go buy a car. Can I meet them there? Could I help them? Because they trusted me.
Calls today.
They trusted me, and I get calls too. They ask me, how can I help, or X plan and A plans and stuff like that. I mean, I'll get you an X plan if somebody needs a Ford. I know some folks to call for the X plan, right?
Sure.
But that kind of stuff is important, and it goes right back to the people part, the people and process, and then making sure we build that our technologies we're bringing into the store around our processes. And if we have to change a process, it has to be bought in from your people, and the people have to be a part of that change, and you can't force it on them.
No, you can't force them on. But so I got someone asked me actually this morning. I was out at breakfast with a dealer, and they asked me. They go, "I understand that I can't force it onto my people. How do I get people to buy in?" Right? And I'm like, "There's been thousands of books written on this, but I find at the core of it is that they're not going to want to own your why unless you know their why." Mm-hmm. Right? Yep. So I said, well, you have something that you're trying to get accomplished, you're trying to get it bought into, but you're just telling them to do it. They're not understanding why you're doing it, because they don't believe in your why, and that's simply because you don't even know their why.
Right.
Is Jim working for you because he's trying to move out of his mother's basement apartment?
Right.
Does Bill work for you and show up every single day and do what he does because he's trying to pay for his daughter's college tuition? Like, understand that. Is this gentleman, this service advisor, does he want to be a service manager, and that's why he's doing it? So okay, cool. Let's know their why. Right?
You got to know their why for sure, and it's the same thing with your customers coming in to buy. Why are they there? And it all goes back to why. And it's not. And then I read a book once, it's not your why.
Yes,
and that's I can't remember the name of the author, but it was a couple years ago. I read, one of my goals was to read 52 books in a year.
Did you?
I did.
That's awesome.
Don't ever do that.
I won't.
It's a lot of books.
I don't read.
And a lot of them.
I listen to them.
That's what my kids said. They said, "Dad, you really didn't read the books."
Oh, did you?
You listened to them, and I had them on 1.25 speed.
I do the same thing.
You got to. You can pick it up quicker. You listen faster.
Yes.
But it was a lot of books, and it was a lot of some of the repetitive type stuff, because I read a lot of business and self-help type books. And, but the book was It's Not Your Why, so I thought that was a great book. It's a great book. If I'll have to look it up and send it to you, and you can maybe put it on there.
Okay, so you've consumed a lot. So give me your 3 favorite titles, your 3 favorite books. Let's do that.
Oh boy, well, that one's one of my top ones. How to Win Friends and Influence People.
God, that is a classic.
It's a classic. Everybody should.
It's a classic. I think
everybody needs to read that. And I tell you, if you take a Dale Carnegie class just to do that, I think it's one of the best things you can do for yourself, because it's still a people business. And I always tell my kids, it's not about what you're learning in school, it's how you're learning to engage with other people around you.
Agreed.
And you can do anything, because I have a general studies degree. I spent 6 full years undergrads at Kent State University. I have a general studies in psychology and biology, and I tell you what, it's fine. You don't need to be in business school.
Yeah.
Just learn how to talk with people. I do have a finance degree, an MBA in finance, but I never use that either. Yeah. It's more my gift of gab and talking, but those are 2 of my favorites. And there was a really cool book I read, and it was a Navy SEAL, and it was a guy, I can't remember what it was called off the top of my head, but it was really good about just being dedicated and really driven on the little things and the little improvements every day. And there's a lot of books about just doing one.
But it is all about the little things.
It's the little things. And my father used to say, take care of the little problems, because they don't become big problems.
Well, I think as an industry, like when we identify a big problem, we seem to take care of it pretty quick.
Squelch it.
Right? Yeah. Like it is just like, nope, that's not going to happen. We'll shut that down real fast, right? But it's the little things are the reasons why people will stay employed with you.
Well,
or buy from you.
It goes
or
back.
Or not.
It goes back to the inspect what you expect.
Yeah.
Because if you allow the little things to get overlooked or you don't do anything about it, it slowly evolves your store into the bad habits.
Yes.
And now, we were an APB dealer, which was basically, if anybody remembers or anybody still uses it, great. We would go to the desk with the first pencil.
Yep.
You go back to your customer, never leave that customer.
Yep.
And then you pick up the phone and call the desk. That helps you hold gross.
Yep.
A lot of great things happen.
Yep.
But what I found and what happened at our store is we got away from that. And we were getting up and leaving our customers. And nowadays with our cell phones, the customer's going right on there and they're doing their showrooming.
Of course.
Right? And they're shopping you can't blame them. Why not?
Yeah.
And so, but that was shame on us to get away from that. Even, it maybe wasn't customer friendly, but it still did what we needed to do, and that was sell cars at a profit and make money. And again, it speaks back to that appraisal. How did we got away from engaging our customers about the walk around with the car.
Yeah.
And so all those little things that you stop doing add up over time.
It's the little things. It's just, what's funny is I would almost like to see a role, like a position, like at a dealer group, because I don't think you can do it at an individual dealership, but I want to see like the director of little things.
That's smart.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I actually think it would be a role that would bring serious ROI.
Oh, Elviss's Wedding.
Elviss's Wedding.
Elviss's Wedding, right there. Look at that.
That's where Elvis got
the little chapel right there. Oh my gosh.
That's pretty cool.
Wow, nice. Very good.
I just want to say, can you imagine? Like, I was just we went out to this Italian restaurant the other night for dinner, and I can't remember the name, and it's so bad that I don't remember it. But it was a regular stomping ground for Frank Sinatra and Dean and Sammy and just all of them. And it's just like the history.
I tell you, there's a great place, probably not far from where we're at right now, called the Golden Steer.
The Golden Steer.
It's in this little strip mall. You pull up, it's kind of indiscriminate looking, and you open the door, and you go in, it's like walking back in time. The guys are all dressed in their tuxedos, and they all have their individual, the guy that makes the Caesar salad right there at your desk, they got the wine steward, they got all the guys, they're playing Sinatra music, they got the big round tables you get to sit at, they're all lined up. Just a great place. If you ever get a chance to go there, it's called the Golden Steer. It's tremendous, really great food. And really old Vegas feel. Been around for 50, 60 years. Yeah, that's a great, the person is in charge of little things.
Wouldn't that be cool?
It just still goes back to accountability.
That's what it is.
It's all accountability, and it's, as leaders, as dealers, it's holding your people accountable. And it's okay, because I think people want to be held accountable. They want somebody to know that because it shows you care.
Yeah. Well, it's just insane. Like, I mean, think of this. I could see what this person could do. I mean, literally go from dealership to dealership, and we're talking all the way down to like how the receptionist answers the phone.
Oh my gosh, we had a horrible one.
I just called the dealership the other day, and I was like, oh my God. I called
Brutal.
The first time I called the dealership, because what happened was I had a different cell phone on me, and normally I just call the dealer principal directly. And I was like, oh crap, what's his number? I couldn't find it, so I was using a different phone. So I called into the dealership. Probably the first time in the 2 years I worked with him, I actually physically called into the dealership. Holy crap. Yeah. I was like, I got through to him, and I'm like, Bill, we need to talk about this. I'm like, who's that? He goes, I know. And he gave me those two words, and I was like, well, what do you mean you know? Like, what are you doing about it?
That's a problem. Right? If you know and you're not doing anything about it, then you're the problem.
That's what I was saying.
It's not the receptionist. She's just doing what she does.
Well, I actually asked. I said, is she having a bad day? Because I didn't know, right? And I wasn't going to pretend like I didn't know, right?
Yeah.
And he was like, no. And I said, well, is that normally the way she answers? And he's, yes. And I'm like, well, come to find out that she's a family member.
Oh, boy.
So then you know how family dynamics are in dealerships and everything.
And I know. I was that family member.
I know. That's what I'm
right?
saying. You can
But it was great. What was good about me, I was our Blue Oval champion back when Ford was doing Blue Oval, and my father-in-law and brother-in-law took me into the room one day and said, look, this Blue Oval thing came out. There's a lot of money attached to it. We're going to make sure we get it. So you're in charge of it. I'm like, great.
Do you remember your Ford-provided lease calculators?
Oh, yeah, the half car stuff, yeah. They were awesome. I still know some of my trainers. Yeah. There's a guy up in Boston. that I know, and then Mike Vince is in Youngstown. I know Michael real well. All those old stuff, it was half a car's great. I love half a car.
I know, right?
And it's
Do you think some of these new guys could actually sell a lease if they didn't have a computer system?
Probably not. Man, we had, what was it, Lane Logic was one of the things that we had. I think it was Lane Logic.
Yeah.
And it was, would bring in all the calculations from all the different banks, and it would put all the stuff. Oh my gosh, it was great. Nobody knew how to use it. Nobody knew how to apply it into what we were doing. It was just awesome. But I was in charge of bringing back our red carpet leases and, telling people they owed money at the end. They're like, seriously? And then you had to tell them they were $200 more in payment. Yep. Plus they were over on their mileage, all the bad stuff. It was great. Then they finally started building into the leases, those types of things, right? So that was great. But, it's a great industry. And even today, that's why we have NADAs, so many vendors that are here, because there's so many things that are so much slippage.
I know. And it's the little things. I'm telling you, I want to push for it. I want to, it's what it is. It's like I almost kind of have this in my head and every dealership is slightly different, right? So I think of it like a little tin boat, all right? And there's all these pencil-sized holes in the tin boat. Some dealerships have a lot more than others. Uh-huh. Some have less, and it's just like, I feel like the next couple of years, that's the best way to kind of describe it. And it's you need to start filling in these pinholes.
Yeah, there's some days I think I'd like to own a dealership.
I will go back
and try to start implementing a lot of this talking head stuff that I say and think about, because it's, you and I can sit in this nice little Tesla and ride around, be driven, and
it's kind of fun,
and talk about it. But when you're the guy that's the owner, that spent the money to be what he is today and the time, it's a lot easier said than done.
It is a lot easier said than done.
And I think that's the biggest challenge, is our industry is, it's just, any industry I think is easier said than done.
Oh,
and it's not easy, and we're all working hard every day, and I God bless those guys that are out there, working hard and putting in the hours, because, I work hard, put in the hours too in a different way. And it's not easy. It's not easy what I do. And again, we just got to all work hard to try to make things better. And I think that's something that, the technology can help us do. And we've got to look at our people, and we've got to invest in our people.
Yep.
And do that as much as possible. We got to know our people. And to your point about what are the buttons that push and help that person, and why they do what they do, and the why.
But it seems like we don't. Okay, so I call this superstar culture. Okay, we have to stop hiring for it. All we're looking for are these 20 car guys.
Right.
I just want these 20 or 30 car guys, whatever it is, right? We're looking for these superstar cultures, but we're not developing. And the salespeople that we have right now is just like it's like we almost want to ignore that. And if I could just find a superstar, then I could just plop them right into that seat.
Yeah.
I don't really need to do any work.
Yeah.
I don't know why we keep heading that direction.
But you look at what some of these teams, they put superstars on the team, and everybody else falls.
Yes. And that goes back down to the culture thing.
Culture, yeah.
Because just because the person is a good salesperson doesn't necessarily mean they're the right person for the culture. But to be able to say that, you actually have to define what that culture is going to be.
Right. Well, I have a good friend of mine, John Sykes.
Go in the next lane.
He's at Epsilon, and he's a big believer in these companies that talk about their culture are the companies that usually have bad cultures. I agree. If they're out there touting how great their culture is.
Like I saw this video of this guy from Google talking about his culture, and I'm looking around in the room, and I'm watching everybody. I'm like, is nobody talking about how Google just had like a monster walkout?
Yeah, exactly.
And there's like, people don't want to talk to anybody.
I know. It's unbelievable. It's funny. It's good. I tell you what, this has been really a good experience. Really nice. Great.
Thanks. This is the first time, so thank you for letting me figure out the route and everything.
I enjoy watching all your podcasts, and I stay engaged with it. And anytime, I'd love to be back on with you, talk more.
Let's do it.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Thanks, John. Really appreciate this.
Thank you. Really good. Thanks.